Hi folks, Lou here to talk about the conversion of my game Doomstar from tabletop to video. In 1980 or thereabouts, H.P. Gibson's in the UK published my first published board game, which was called Swords and Wizardry. It was a derivative of Stratego. Now in England, H.P. Gibson's published Stratego-like games, starting with L'Attaque, which is what Stratego is derived from, and also games like Dover Patrol, Aviation, Tritactics. And those had all been published before or soon after the First World War. So they were the natural people to publish such a game. So it was derivative of Stratego, but I avoid some of the strongly hierarchical aspects of Stratego. And I even used dice in one situation, which is spellcasting. Now, not too long after that, I also designed a somewhat Stratego-like space war game. But I set that aside for a very long time, until in 2009 I resurrected it, modified it, had it playtested a lot, mostly by video game design students, and then didn't do a whole lot with it. But in 2015 to 16, it's being converted to video. And there is a photo of a prototype that uses cardboard pieces inserted into stands, which is one way to do a tabletop version of such a game. Another way is to use blocks and put stickers on the blocks. So, Doomstar now is vaguely reminiscent of Stratego. It's much more fluid, it's much quicker to play, it's much less hierarchical, and it even allows movement of two pieces at once of certain types. It has been played by at least one publishing company in 2014, but they decided to do another World War II air-sea hex-based Stratego-derived game I designed much more recently called Pacific Convoy. So, when someone running a small company that converts tabletop to video games wrote to me about making a PC version of Britannia, I suggested that the unpublished Doomstar might be a better subject for a first try. It's much easier to program, but especially easier to devise a computer opponent, often wrongly called AI, for the game. While the game is intended to be played person against person, a two-player game, most people who buy a video game expect to be able to play against a computer. So if you're making a video version of a tabletop game, frequently you will provide, or at least want to provide, a computer opponent. Now in general, going from tabletop to video involves less need to change the design than going from video game to tabletop. In general, video games are much harder to produce. The programming, etc., takes a lot of time, but the tabletop games have to be simpler, and so there's less flexibility in the details of the mechanics. In this particular case, Doomstar relies heavily on hidden identity, but has no cards, and hidden identity is very easy to do in a video game. In fact, unless you write the program in order to reveal the identity of something, its identity will remain hidden. So it's a straightforward board game. I've not had to change any of the rules for the conversion. Another advantage of Doomstar is it has many advanced pieces that allow for a follow-up expansion to the standard game. So you can have the standard game published separately and then publish one with the advanced pieces. Now, over the years, I've had many people contact me about an electronic version of Britannia, and none has come to pass. Now, there is an Android version. I was never contacted by whoever did it. It's only half done, but it is available through the Play Store for free. I assume it was a student programming project, but I have no idea actually where it comes from. So we're going to see whether this Doomstar project comes to fruition. At present, it's quite playable, even against the computer. and it's far enough along that I think it will ultimately be published on Steam. Now recently I went to the UK Game Expo, and so did Large Visible Machine, the company doing the conversion. I took a paper prototype to help publicize the video. As it turned out, a lot more people played the paper prototype than played the video game prototype. And I guess that's not surprising because it's a tabletop game convention. The company made some contacts, and I had the unusual experience of watching 7 or 8 games played of something I finished years ago. And I'm happy to say I saw no flaws at all, which is almost surprising because I have a lot of experience of setting games aside for some years and then watching people play, and sometimes the reaction is, why did I do that? Or even worse, oh my God, that's awful. But in this case, no such reactions. Now, there's a public beta, and the sign-up is at www.doomstargame.com/beta. What a beta test is they send you a copy of the game in its current state, you play it, and you provide feedback, especially if you find any bugs in it, but feedback in general. Here is a screenshot of an early point in the game, and here is one from later in the game. Now, you might want to do this for your own game. A number of the people who came by said that it's not unusual now for people to have unpublished tabletop games turned into video games. Of course, it's much more common to have published tabletop games turned into video games because it's been discovered that the sales of the tabletop game that's already been published go up when the video versions come out. There are also now lots of skillful programmers who have found that the indie apocalypse has descended. In other words, even if they make a good game, it perishes in a sea of 100,000 plus releases a year, probably a lot more than that now. So they're willing to work for hire. Now, be very careful about what rights you give up when you're having a conversion made. I'm not going to say more than that, but some people get too eager and they give up too many rights, and then they find themselves with little or nothing afterward. So once again, the beta test as of June 2016, www.doomstargame.com/beta, and as with most such URLs, you can skip to www. Thanks for listening.